Welcome to All Things Work, a podcast from SHRM. I'm your host, Anne Sparaco. Thank you for joining us. Each week, we dive into a game-changing topic that's shaping the world of work. And what many people can really relate on is their responsibilities both in and outside the workplace. We all have that home life. We all have somebody to take care of, or a pet to take care of, or even a house to take care of. And here to join us to talk about that work-life integration is Wes Burke, CHRO of care.com. Welcome, Wes, to All Things Work.
Thanks for having me, Anne. I really appreciate it.
Well, we love to have you, and we're really excited about this conversation. So care.com is an online platform that connects families with caregivers and offers so many other vital resources for workers and organizations. So, Wes, can you talk a little bit more about the services care.com offers and your overall mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the really cool things about care is our purpose is to nurture the world through care. And that shows up in every aspect of what we do. When you really look at our business, there's two sides to it. There's the consumer facing platform that most people know about. And that's where you go to find help with childcare, senior care, pet care, housekeeping. But then we have our employee benefit side. And this is where we help employers find caregiving benefits for their employees, which I think, as employer, we use our own services, we eat our own food. And so I'm excited to share a little bit more about that with you today, as well as we go through our conversation.
Yes, I love how it's both sides. There's so much to it. So having these services is important for both the employer and employee. And we kind of before we dive into our main questions, I really just want to talk about the human aspect of this. A lot of people in our audience can really relate to this. You either have a pet at home, you are taking care of your own children, you may have a loved one who's elderly, may need a little more extra care. And what a lot of people may not even think about when it comes to caregiving is even just kind of maintaining your own home. I mean, that is the home life, that is the foundation, quite literally. And so there's a lot more to it than people may even realize. When you think of caregiver, you may just think of, oh, that person has children, but there's just so much more. So when they come into the office, you don't really see that person caring for something or someone else because they come to the office ready to work, right?
Absolutely. The other part too, I mean, you look at in today's society and where we are, like you're helping at every stage of life for somebody in your life. It's either your child, and they could be the beginning of family planning, all the way through getting help into college or graduation, right? But then our seniors, our parents, as they age in place and trying to find solutions that really meet their needs. I think the one thing that we've proven too is that we like choice in the way that we care and we are cared for. And then, you know what, one of the great things I think out of the pandemic is a lot more people have pets today. And so I was reading a figure, it's like 100 million new pets or something like that over the past several years. So when you start to think about those facts and figures, like it adds up and it becomes very much a paramount discussion. And the last thing you hit on is like, look, we all need a little bit of help sometime. And the housekeeping aspect of what we do, like just that little bit can take so much stress off any caregiver. And so, yeah, there's a wide range of support that's available and needed in households every single day.
And I'm just adding a personal note there. I mean, about the pets thing is I feel like I can't even get a pet yet because I'm so worried about being able to take the time away from work to take care of the pet. And I just want to dedicate more time to that. So it's just, that's just like my personal note that even I have been pushing off getting a pet because of simply my workload reasons. So I think a lot of people can relate to that. And like you said, it's not just different aspects of life, but it's actually the different stages of life. And you're going through it every day that life just keeps on going.
I think about this in terms of increased absenteeism, like lost productivity, challenges in recruiting, excuse me. But it's one of the reasons why at CARE, we are so passionate about advocating specifically for help in the workplace at both the personal and professional level. And, the way I think about this is better business performance really impacts everybody in a positive way, including the bottom line, and then allows you to reinvest in things like caregiving benefits, et cetera. So I appreciate that question, though. It's a great starter.
And I love how you targeted that mental aspect. I even saw on care.com's LinkedIn page, I think you shared it as well, just following up on the impacts of the hurricanes that, hit so many families' homes up the coast from Florida all the way to North Carolina being devastated. That's another thing that a lot of people may not understand when it comes to caregiving is that devastation of weather impacts on your home, trying to literally rebuild your home life. And so we know that care.com, has expressed sympathy and resources for that, which is such a wonderful thing to see. To see that you're reaching far beyond just family matters. And so how has care.com really approached the balance between the caregiving and the work, and what results has care.com really seen from the initiatives and the resources being offered here?
Yeah, I do want to point out one thing before I answer that. So specific to the two hurricanes, I think one of the challenges that our CEO Brad Wilson gave us is like we can't just show up when things are tough. Like we've got to be there sort of all the time. And one of the things that we did for our all of our employers that use our care specialist team is proactively reach out and say, hey, here are resources in these areas that you can push to your employees immediately. In addition to that, like we're here as your backup. Like we're here to help you through this. Like if somebody needs help logistically finding something, like we can do that. We can accommodate it through our specialist team. So it's one of these things where, like, as we look at the world today, like we realize we got to up our game too for our clients. So, but in terms of balancing, like, let me start by saying one of my favorite things that I get, and I get so excited to talk about this. We are a workforce of caregivers. When I look at our team today at Care, 70% of the people here have kids at home. A majority of people have ailing parents, and most people have pets. And so we show up sort of in every single part of our workforce. There's somebody or some pet that you're caring for, which gives us firsthand understanding of the challenges that you face each and every day. And so we take care of our people, and we do that by making sure that they can take care of others. I always like to talk about this example in terms of the philosophy, and it sounds like a
Mhm.
really silly one that makes a big difference. We look at this in terms of starting first with our leaders. Are they empowered to make the right decisions for their team and for their business? And are they also trained or aware of, like, one of our core values is empathy? Like, do they express empathy? Are they digging in? We give an engagement survey like most companies do, and every single year, this last year, the number one rated area was managers, and managers offering support to their employees at the right time. And so that's exciting. But then there's other things that, like, going back to my sort of, maybe this is the silly example, is school schedules. We are closed on every day school is closed. I mean, the summer break, obviously, we help our employees accommodate for that. But if you're off for President's Day, or schools or kids are off for President's Day, we're closed for President's Day. Indigenous Peoples Day, et cetera, et cetera. Those things, the small things that you do to say, like, we don't want you to pick between being home with your child or being at work. Like, we're going to make that decision for you so that you feel like you have the right level of support. And it makes us an outlier for most companies and an employer of choice.
Wow, that's really interesting, especially like you said, if 70%, of your workforce has, children to take care of, that's impacting a majority of the people who are in your offices. So I'm sure they're very grateful for that benefit. And we all know, like you've said, juggling, trying to balance. The word balance is something we hear a lot when it comes to family life, home life, and work life as well. Here at SHRM, we kind of have this fluid concept where we call it work life integration. And I understand that from like the perspective that everybody's schedule is different. Like we said, everybody's in that different stage of life. It's not a one size fits all. And I think that's where your initiatives come in, and it's really interesting to see that. And so because we're seeing post pandemic, and everybody kind of coming from a different perspective, different family life. What are some of the significant shifts that have taken place in this realm? And how has, the HR world really had to adjust to not just meet the employees' needs, but also try to maintain the organization's goals for success?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And honestly, I think so many of us HR professionals have struggled to sort of figure out how to best support this as we move forward. And it's a challenge, right? Each and every day, I think all of us are looking at the same sort of data and statistics, right? We're more remote, we're more dispersed than we've ever been before. I think employees are working longer days, logging off later. But the question is like, are those longer days also yielding the right level of productivity that we're looking for? And so there's some challenges in that, right? I think the best thing I could say is each company has to take a step back and look and make a decision for them in terms of how do you juggle the two. But what we talk about specifically at Care is like, a dad can log off early to go attend their daughter's soccer game. And that often results in them probably logging back on later at night to finish some work or to, get a report out, et cetera. It's the flexibility, I think, is key meeting people where they are, but also realizing that you have to provide the space for people to disconnect. And so I wish I had like a silver bullet to tell you that here's the exact answer on how to fix this or like what's truly working, but it's a challenge.
Well, it makes sense, like we said, there's no one size fits all. Every company is different, every employee is different. I think that's where a huge challenge lies in this. But like you said, it's great for the organization to kind of assess the needs of the individual employees and see what really is kind of some of the best strategies to take from there. And we talked a lot about, like you said, the dad wanting to, maybe leave a little early to go to his daughter's soccer game. I love that you came up with that example. I loved that. Because there are possibly some innovative policies for like family friendly policies. So what are some of those friendly policies that care.com has implemented? And I'm assuming it has created an impact on employee satisfaction and employee retention because they're feeling supported in that way, right?
Yeah, it's we've done a lot of stuff here, and the great thing about my job and what we do is I get to talk to a lot of CHROs, and I talk about this in a continuum of let's call it good, better, best, right? When we talk about good, paid parental leave, like I think today this has become sort of a non-starter for most folks, but also in that realm of sort of caregiving and family benefits, like there's lots of national partners, including some folks that we work with, where you can get discounts to daycare facilities. You can get discounts to other to various like platforms, etc. Along with priority waiting lists, right? Like one aspect of that, this sort of enhanced EAP or care specialist team would also put it in there. Then you look at sort of like the what's in the middle model, and it's things like being really intentional and thoughtful with phasing in and out of work from leave. So when someone goes out, and I think oftentimes we're like, oh, they're on leave, things are taken care of, great. No, like there's a lot of work that goes in prepping that new parent before they leave to make sure they've got backup, to make sure they've got support. The team too, right? Like nobody wants to feel like they're high and dry. But then this return to work phase in. And I think one of the things that we found is like the most powerful is like, you don't have to come back full time right away. Like, let's figure out a way to do this over a few weeks so that you're not overwhelmed. We're not frustrated with the fact that you're not getting stuff done at the same pace you were before. And so there's a lot of thought like around that we leverage today. And then sort of the best model. This is the subsidized backup care. Like, are there things that we can provide? Specifically at Care, we give 15 backup care days a year. So if you're a new parent, or if you have now a senior need, you can use one of those backup care days either in home, in a facility, or through your personal network, which I think makes a big difference. There are some also like really like what I would call very minor things in cost for us, but make a big difference for the employee. So your first several weeks out, like you don't want to cook. We give you $300 in reimbursed meals that you can expense. Also, like you start to get hospital bills, and there are things that you didn't account for. So every new parent gets $1,000 baby bonus. Maybe I shouldn't call it a baby bonus, but $1,000 new parent bonus to help offset some of those initial expenses that you weren't expecting. And so for us, going back to like my point before, 70% of the people working here have kids. Here's another interesting fact for you: 65% of our workforce, and this is in tech, is female. And so when you start to think about like who do we want to attract and how do we retain, we see direct correlation to who our representation with our company is, but also like who we're retaining long term. And so to me, like I think we're winning here. It's something I'm always very excited to talk about. I don't personally have kids, but like this to me is like a gold standard for what we should be doing. And even though I don't have kids, I brag to everybody about it. So it's a neat thing about us.
Yeah, it's like this is your child, this is what you
Yeah.
care a lot about.
Yeah.
But I love that you're kind of stepping out of your own world here. I think this is a strong key to, implementing such strategies is you don't have to be a parent to understand maybe something a parent is going through or might need as a result from an employer, I mean. And I think that's really great, that point you kind of just made right there. You listed a lot of different types of policies. Maybe not that every company might offer, but some companies probably do, which is wonderful. But has there been any policy in your experience that has stood out to be extremely effective for more like the long run for more employees, I guess?
Yeah, I think like, look, there's no one size fits all. And I think that's the one thing is like, know your demographic, know who you're trying to attract and who you're trying to retain. And then you kind of build a strategy around that. What I would say is like we try to create sort of a litany or like you call it a smorgasbord, but like all of them sort of cover from family planning through, retirement for like your seniors, right? And how do we sort of help you through each of those journeys? We all know at some point you're going to deal with one of these sort of things as an individual. And so it's about having sort of optionality and nothing that's overly like specific where people can sort of mix and match. And that the thing I sort of hit on earlier that I think is really critical is like, do you have a leadership team? And this is key to any of this that is able to support, advocate, and really meet the employee and the business where they are. And this is like something like, look, I wish I could say we are A plus on this. Like everybody has work to do here, but to me, like that's what truly is sustainable about family policies is like making sure that your leaders support it wholly.
So here at SHRM, we talk a lot about leading with inclusion to foster a very supportive and healthy workplace. I think this plays a really strong role here because, like we said, different phases, different people, different lives. It's just so many different things moving at once. It's like a little sphere just going in circles here. So what are some best practices for HR leaders to really foster that supportive and inclusive culture to make sure employees feel support? I mean, we talked about it a little bit here. I know you'd already talked about some policies and ways to make people feel, comfortable and feel like that they, like you said, like that phase back, instead of just kind of just like slapping them with a pile of work. But what are some other ways?
Yeah, I think like look broadly here, it starts with prioritizing open communication. And I think, many companies, if not most now have some level of an engagement survey. And it's a good starting point. Like we leverage ours to get initial feedback, on a variety of topics. But then specific to benefits and anything else that sort of pops on our survey, we do a deep dive. And one of the things I tell everybody at Care is like, I'm not the only one who can resolve like culture or make sure that we're inclusive. Like we all own our 100 square feet, and owning your 100 square feet is taking ownership for the survey. And so we typically flip the results back, and then we meet with every single employee individually to say, here's how the company overall rated us. Here's the survey and the feedback results. Tell us what we're missing here. Tell us what you want us to clarify. And oftentimes we get in these conversations. The example I'd give you around childcare, like, look, we publish a lot of data on this. It's now 25% of a family's take home pay is focused on childcare. And so we are feeling that, both with our customers, but also with our employees. And one of the conversations we had in this sort of, going in this open enrollment is like, how can we defer some of the costs there? How can we make sure that you feel like you've got what you need supported? And that's how we came in with discounted childcare partners. It's how we came up with priority wait lists. We've enhanced our backup care stuff. So like, to me, like that's the first part. And then, if you have the opportunity to leverage employee resource groups and sort of test some of these things in the water, I think it's a great place to start.
We talked a lot about the challenges the employees may face when it comes to juggling those responsibilities, integrating both into their lives. But on the employer side, for organizational leaders, what are some of the challenges they face when trying to implement caregiving support programs?
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to my point earlier. I think we try either to go very narrow or we try to solve everything everywhere. And there's no one size fits all. And I'll give the example of coming back to the office. In the past, if you were singular location focused, you could put an on-site daycare or get an on-site daycare partner very close to you for childcare. But like today, when we look at most employers, there's some bit of remote hybrid aspect to what we do. And so how do you deal with the dispersed workforce? And I don't think that's going away anytime soon. The other thing I would say is like you look at people who are on shift work, nurses, or in retail, and it looks very different because you're also dispersed. And so it's about having the right partners, right, that can help you work through these solutions, either a great broker or folks in the space who sort of know it. And then, I would say it's kind of interesting when we talk about the need for this and trying to solve this today. We surveyed this last year, I think like 1,000 different HR leaders and employees. 80% of those said that childcare and senior care benefits is top of mind, and also that it significantly boosts productivity and strengthens talent recruitment and retention, along with fostering a more diverse workforce. So the short of all of this is you got to have a good partner, And you've got to sort of think about what to solve for the masses, not for individual wellness cases.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that talk about diversity. Our own president and CEO of SHRM, Johnny C. Taylor Jr. He always says the phrase "diversity is our strength," and everybody has the right to feel included. And I love that leading with that. And this question I'm super curious about because there are some common misconceptions about family friendly policies out there. But what are the most common ones you think that HR leaders should be really aware of when it
Yeah.
comes to implementing these policies?
Yeah, this is a good question. There's stigma around leveraging and
Mhm.
using family policies. And it's interesting to me, like you have some companies who maybe want to add this to their repertoire, their offerings, let's check the box, but don't necessarily want leverage because it's like if people are using this, are they actually working, or vice versa? And I think that those are actually opposite, right? Like if people are leveraging your benefits, such as like backup care, then you know they're not calling in sick. You know that they're like coming to work. It's funny because COVID, I guess, gave us a unique opportunity to peek in each other's lives. And I think what we found is that we are all juggling a lot of things. And so really thinking about how to attack stigma as it relates to this, how to think about utilization in terms of offsetting or helping or boosting productivity somewhere else. It's one of these things where there's a real opportunity to sort of integrate these family friendly policies into workplace culture, but I think really importantly connecting them back to some sort of ROI.
And kinda getting rid of that misconception in your head because, um, like we talked about earlier, some of your coworkers might not have children or they might not have that elderly parent who needs extra help for doctor's appointments and everything, or somebody might just not have a dog or a cat
Yeah.
or a home to deal with. They have an apartment. So it's easy for us to get wrapped up in our own lives and then forget that what another person is going through. So I think it's kind of the, walk a mile in this person's shoes kind of situation, right?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I mean, it's an interesting thing that we talk a lot to our leaders about is like, are you putting yourself in that person's position? And then also, are you making sure that you're connecting them with the right resources in the company? And so I would absolutely agree with that statement.
I would love to look a little bit more towards the next 3 years. You have a lot of experience in this realm, so I'm curious as to how you foresee the landscape of workplace support, for caregivers. What might be evolving over the next 3 years? What can we expect, really?
I don't want to be overly dramatic, but we're in a dire position. Like we've entered this childcare cliff. We're seeing, supply down, demand up. That's happening in childcare. Within the next 3 to 4 years, you're going to see this really hit in the senior care space, and the impact on employers will be greater. And that's part of this is inaction from our government. Not to make this overly political, but like we know we have a stalemate when it comes to this discussion around childcare, and so it's going to be imperative for business leaders to come together and find a way to solve this for their own company, but also I think across all of industry. So this is going to continue to come up, and I think one of the things we talk a lot about here is part of modern benefits. So you move from the table stakes to like, what's the future state? This will be a bigger and bigger question or conversation. In fact, our 2024 future benefits report shows that the prioritization of this has moved to one of the top benefits that both employees and employers are talking about. So it's not going away. In fact, it's only going to be something that we talk about more and more over the next several years.
I think so too. I love that insight. So I try to squeeze this into the very end of our episodes. It's a fun question I personally love to ask our guests is if you could go back in time to your younger self, starting out in your career here, what piece of advice would you give yourself, to lead yourself to that success that you're in right now?
Yeah, I've always been ambitious and communicative, but I don't know that I always like had the confidence, especially early on, and also ask for help early on. And I think part of building confidence is finding people who can help you with the experiences that you don't have and how to leverage them. And so I'd go back and tell my younger self, like, trust people, ask for help, lean into them, but also remember that like you got it, you got this, kid. So that'd be my advice.
I love that. I love that sign of confidence that I think everybody can relate to. I definitely wish I could go back in time and tell myself that. So
We all deal with imposter syndrome in some way, right? Some way or another. So
Right, right. But we're all human at the center, and that's the beauty of our podcast, talking about that and how it applies to the workplace. So thank you so much, Wes, for joining us on this episode of All Things Work. We truly enjoyed your insightful answers today. So thank you.
yeah, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. And thank you for your coverage on this important topic. It means a lot to us at CARE.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode of All Things Work. Before we say goodbye, I encourage you to follow and subscribe to All Things Work wherever you enjoy your podcasts. And if you want to see more around this and other hot button issues impacting the world of work, we curate content each week in the newsletter that includes this podcast, plus related research and helpful resources to keep you in the know. All you have to do is go to shrm.org/allthingswork. Leave us a review, comment. We want you to be part of the conversation. All right, that's it for this week. We'll see you next time.